Welcome to the Health, Vengeance and Harmonies podcast. I'm Leonardo Rodriguez, a PhD student exploring the intersections between neuroscience, music therapy and sleep. So before I introduce my wonderful guest, Gosia, I want to give a bit of introduction behind the podcast inspiration. So it's based on René Girard's concept of mimetic desire, which is a suggested force underlying all social interactions and social emotions, which is that of imitation, wanting to imitate the desires of others. And on the positive end of wanting to imitate others is compassionate and empathetic behaviors towards people who are similar to our goals. Whereas on the negative side, there is rivalries and scapegoating towards people who are similar to us. Now I'd like to introduce my guest today. I'm honored to be joined by Gosia Malinowska, who, thank you very much. So, who is a therapist of all sorts and who has trained in many aspects. Before becoming a therapist, you were training as a lawyer, if that's correct.
It's kind of correct. It's the Polish version of lawyer. Yes, it's. I basically did 5 years of a law study, which I never used in my life. But here you go. You have to start somewhere, which is not a waste knowledge, by the way. Yeah, it leads me to other things that I have rediscovered later on, and it was useful and handful at some point. But it's not anymore.
Okay, fantastic. So you were trained as a lawyer, and then you transitioned as a therapist. You have many different qualifications: polyvagal theory, which is a way of how the nervous system works. Then you're training with Gabor Mate, which is a very famous psychotherapist.
Actually,
doctor.
I need to update that. I just finished mentorship, so I'm happy to be qualified with compassionate inquiry, and now moving to the certification period, which is going to take a few months, but I'm getting there. So.
Fantastic. Well, actually, you have a picture with Gabor Mate right here on your Instagram.
I do.
Yeah. So you've been doing the mentorship with him. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And this is your Instagram page for people who would like to explore. I'll put the links. This is you in nature and one of your websites as a holistic therapist. And you have actually fantastic pictures of all sorts of places, by the way. Yeah, in nature.
Portugal and London. That's
Portugal
the
and
combination. London? Yes.
Okay. So that's great. Yeah, so that's where you have to go and take your pictures. Portugal and London.
That's right.
And you're a sound healer and a Reiki healer. And in addition to, esoteric and ancient wisdom teachings, indigenous ways, you do also Pilates. But all of these could sound a bit out there for a normal therapist. But that's what we want to discuss today, because it's actually interesting practice. How else would you describe yourself? You're born in Poland, you grew up in Poland, and then you came here to London. How else would you describe yourself?
I escaped Poland at some point because I finished my studies, and then I was like, what's next?
Yeah.
And the what's next was, actually, I have nothing to do in Poland, so I will explore different, avenues. And that's how I ended up in the UK. It's supposed to be 3 months, and in August it's going to be 20 years since I've arrived to the UK. And It was never anywhere else. It was always London.
Okay.
Although I can feel more the nature is calling me more and more. So God knows what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to be Portugal, because that's another lovely country which I tend to visit quite frequently. But yes, in terms of my professional career, I moved to London, and then, as many people, I kind of ended up working my way up through the corporate environments, etc., which I have not left yet. I'm still with one leg in supporting my life in the UK with working for the corporation company. But in the same time, I'm following my path and my passion and my, something that makes me feel good and makes feel other people good. So I had this epiphany moment, which led to kind of discovering the sound healing together with Reiki. It kind of came more or less the same time. And later on, the teachings of Gabor Mate kind of waved in. But in the meantime, I was also doing some meditation teacher training with Tara Bragg, which is my I'm only just starting a mindfulness teacher training course with Tara Brach as well. So like
Okay.
proper training,
Sarah
because
Brass.
I'm a student of hers for quite a while, but now I'm doing a proper training with her. So I'm following the my teachers who sort of supported me on my sort of self-discovery journey through the past few years. And now, since I enjoyed it so much, I also wanted to for people to understand and to know how this might influence their lives and how I can potentially help someone and improve, even if it's just one person in the world. That's already is going to make me happy. But I know there is more out there that is craving for something different, and people are opening up more to the different type of modalities. They people start to see that we need to reconnect with our bodies. We need to listen to the wisdom of the body more than what is happening outside of the world of this beautiful vessel that is holding emotions, and it's connected to the energy of the universe and connected to the energy of the earth, and this is where the healing comes from. So more and more people are starting to see that connection, and in a different aspects, if it's a science, if it's neuroscience, it's everything is finally starting to come together to kind of
To connect some
treat ourselves
and
properly,
treat.
how it should be, actually, how the nature taught us, 1,000 years ago, in a very specific way, how the healing is supposed to look like. And now with the help of the technology, we can actually, connect even better with that.
This is interesting. So, what about people who don't believe in this? Like, wait, what's happening here? Well, there is, as you say, there's connections actually. That's where
Yeah.
we're gonna have as our discussions. There are actually connections that you have been exploring yourself. How the nervous system can be linked, and fascia, which is an interesting um, um,
Concept.
yeah. I mean, it's a, biological
Yes, thank you.
um
Many
aspect
people
that's
actually don't know, and then you say like fascia, and it's like, what do it, it's in the muscle and when it's somewhere in the body, but what actually fascia is?
yeah. Well, it seems to be a sort of a connective tissue that envelops and muscles,
Yeah,
and is actually responsible for our sense of our inner sense. So the interoception, which
that's
is
right.
how we um, have how we feel about our lungs, our heart, our organs, or whatever else inside the body. And what you're just saying here is that the study of Reiki and, for instance, is a way of connecting the body, our sensations of the body, with the rest of the universe, with the energy, and that is a much more healing aspect. Although, so here there's in the traditional sense of healing the body, we say, well, we have to actually deal with the ruptures. So there's something that's broken here. Well, we actually have to deal with the broken thing. It's not something that's outside of the broken thing that has to be healed. So that's how it's usually thought of.
Can you define broken for me? Because
Yeah, well, I'm
that's the
thinking just a broken bone, for instance, right now.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
if
this is very physical.
mhm,
There has been accident and there is a broken
yeah,
bone.
exactly. But I mean, people like Gabor Mate, which is one of your mentors, is quite famous these days. He's a proponent. I've only heard his interviews mainly, not this one specifically, but I've heard him speak, and he's a doctor, focused on substance use disorders and addiction. Physician, right? He's trained as he
He's a
practices, right?
trained physician,
Mm-hmm.
yes, but he doesn't do that anymore because obviously he sort of starts writing his books and speaking up. That now he's just keynote speaker for some of the conferences and events, and he's writing, continue to write the books. But originally, yes, he's a physician, and through his work he actually discovered that there is this missing part, which the doctors from ancient Roman already mentioned, that we tend to disconnect our body from our minds and the rest of the sphere, which is the etheric sphere, right? So now, as I mentioned, we kind of trying to connect this, combine this all together, and for people to understand that the healing comes within, from within. It doesn't have to always be the external
Mm-hmm.
someone, something helping you to recover, to
Okay.
feel better, to
Mm-hmm.
nurture yourself, to go through some emotional, physical sort of turmoil,
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't always needs to be treated with medication, because I think in our world at some point we started to rely on the medication too much, so we're treating the symptoms, but we are not actually trying to get to the root cause of the disease, illness, disorder, you call it whatever you want. If it's a broken bone, there's, I guess, a little bit different, because you do have a broken bone, and we've got the beautiful, we can treat that quite easily now. It's not something very difficult for us. But then there is
Mm-hmm.
also methodologies, what to do with that when you are ready, let's say after the operation or during the operation. There
Yes.
is this human energy that is supporting the entire process of recovery,
Mm-hmm.
from the moment when something happens, through the recovery and the post recovery. So we should be using all the senses and all we know, and the mindsets and the energies that we emanate,
Mm.
to actually help ourselves or someone else to recover.
Mm. Yeah, so there's this physical aspect that, well, medicine is managing to deal with today. As you say, broken bones have solutions. But there is an overarching journey to the patient that is very important. The emotional journey, in simple terms, if we don't talk about energy or spiritual, there's definitely an emotional journey. There's a need for caring before, during the treatment, and after the treatment, whether that's family, friends, or whether that's the medical team, you know, the environment, hospital environment, the home environment. All of these contribute to the emotional well-being. And as you mentioned, the mindsets as well, which is how does your thought patterns, your imagination, your help you with how you deal with your emotions.
That's right.
Um, and people like Gabor Mate, but please correct me if I'm wrong, are people who are trying to doctors who are proponents of how the way you think and your emotional state actually influences your biological state. So things like trauma, or um, if you have, mental health issues, how that actually influences your immune system and your biological state. Is that right? The people who propose this,
That's
right?
that's that's
Yeah.
correct. It's so there is two aspects in that. It's
Mm.
one is that all the answers are in the body, but
Hmm.
what is influencing the body, that we feel the way we feel, and we go and we develop, or we help for the certain diseases or disorders to flourish, right?
Hmm.
Because we all, for example, got the cancer cells in our body, but not everyone expose themselves to the circumstances in a way that the the cancer cells starting to grow and affect your health, right? So what happens with us, with human, why some people get ill and other people do not? Because we are apparently the same, right? So what? So we are not the same, right? We are, first of all, we are all unique creatures. We maybe our system works in a similar way, but if you look at the childhood experience, if you look at the trauma, um, what's it called, ancestral trauma, when you look at the environment you grew up in, this creates certain mindset. So as Buddha says and as Gabor says is, the world creates the mind, but the mind creates the world. So the environment you grew up in, this is your world. So according to what is happening around you, this is how you're going to perceive the world. So if the world is not a safe space, if you constantly need to give up yourself, your essence, your true self, your authenticity in order to survive, in order to stay safe, in order to stay attached, because this is what happens when we're losing authenticity, we are attaching ourselves to this person that we think is going to save us, right? So we're losing parts of ourselves in order to survive, in order to stay safe. And in this case, the more authentic self we lose, the more we are exposed. And that obviously there's more other aspects. The personality, specific personality, you have the qualities of our personality that are involved in that. The way you were born as well. Is your organs and everything managed to develop properly before you arrived to this world? Right? Is your mother birth was traumatic? So all this stuff influences how your body is going to respond to the external threats. So if your mindset was already, the world is not a safe space, this is what your body is going to be trying to do for your entire life. It's going to try to protect you. It's going to try to save you from the threat that is not there. But in the mind, there is a threat. So the body needs to constantly produce the antibodies, and constantly your immune system is just not ready to handle so much. And we keep adding and adding and adding. So if we keep adding, and when we're waking up a little bit too late, then we've got a problem, right? Sometimes we've got a problem in the early on that there is just, people are being born with a certain type of, illnesses. But majority of us, first of all, not that many doctors can find the actual root cause of the diseases, which means this must have developed somehow by the way we are processing our thoughts, and we are suggesting something to the body, so the body is responding accordingly to it, right?
This is interesting. So
Yeah,
the way that we interact between our mind and our body is an essential way to keep it
to
in
try
a
to
healthy way.
heal.
Yeah.
Yes,
And you're saying that some diseases, a lot of diseases, sometimes we don't know the exact cause. Although if we think about it in terms of biology, there has to be a genetic sense. But, with epigenetics, which is a new science, is how does the environment actually influence the genetic mechanisms and the genetic
that's right.
activity, and this could be linked to the way that our mind and
That's
body
it.
interaction. And I
Because
want to
as you
touch.
know, right, when we're talking about DNA, you know that DNA doesn't change that much. DNA did not
It
change
can't.
at all. I mean,
No,
potentially maybe it's changing now because we are under influence in so many, many, many things that our
maybe.
DNA potentially is adjusting. It says that sound is penetrating your body in to such a cellular level, to the on the quantum level, that it potentially might readjust your DNA, like kind of like going to the default sort of state. So you kind
But
of
I don't think we like. with sound we're gonna change into a chimpanzee. I think that's
No,
the
of course
limit. We
not.
stay human, you
No,
know.
I don't
Yeah, yeah.
see it that way. But what I see and what I can tell from what I saw with people who actually managed to heal, it's of course it's the strong belief, it's the mindset, but it's also the body response that is ready to adjust, and
Mm,
you're in the right place to do so. So which means that your body is craving it so much and is ready, and it sees it that by influencing it with a certain modalities or therapy, experiential somatic therapy, you
mhm,
can actually influence the way that your DNA is responding. So the, as you said, the
mhm.
function of of our genes, not the genes itself.
Yes, that's the way that the genes interact, which is the essence of why we have hair cells and skin cells and neurons, while it's still from the same gene program. But here's a very interesting point that you say is the somatic experience that is very important. I love something that you mentioned to describe this. You have to feel it to heal it. And we've just touched before um, on the fascia, which is the way that the biological tissue that allows us to feel all of these organs. It communicates with the nervous system and muscles and organs to feel what we need to heal.
Mhm.
But there's there's very so you work with Reiki and other sound practices. How do we connect better with our body? How do we feel what we need to heal, or how do we heal with feeling? How do you do this in your practice?
That's a very broad question, but
Mm,
I will try to. So, with what you just said, there is a Reiki, there is a sound, there is also polyvagal theory, which speaks about the nervous system, autonomic nervous system,
yes.
which, in a very short way to explain, we've got vagus nerve that it connects, goes from the head to the bottom, to our bellies, and
Yeah.
is this responsible for the distribution, for for everything, all the digestive, resting digestive systems, absolutely everything. But how this is connected to actually sound and Reiki is the
Mm,
fact that by stimulating in the proper way vagus nerve, we can bring the calmness, and we can bring the silence, and
mm,
we can ground ourselves in a way that we're starting to hear and starting to listen, starting to notice what is happening in the body. So that's why, for example, Reiki or meditation with Reiki, meditation with sound itself is so helpful, because we're switching on a different the different neurons that are responsible for creating new neural paths in terms of a healing our nervous system. So the
mm,
nervous system is the one that responds first to what is happening externally, and then suggests, for the internal organs and internal
mhm.
body systems to act upon it, right? Everything
Right.
is happening in a split second. We speak about it, but it's just like,
Yeah.
milliseconds, that
Yes.
the signal gets sent from the nervous system to the brain, and we act upon it,
Mm,
right?
yes. It's
It's not the
electrical.
other way around, because many people think that this is the aperture that it's supposed to be kind of, it controls us. It controls us too much because we allow it to be, and we are programmed in a certain way. But when we start concentrating on breathing, slowing down the breath, then we started to feel the sensation in the body. And coming back to tissues and the fascia, this is where we're starting to see there is actually tension in my shoulder, there is a constriction in my belly, there is this tightness in my chest, there is the shortage of breath, there is this heaviness in my shoulders. So this is all happening when we start to slow down and started to receive the message from the body, because the body is sending us messages all the time. We are just, in this world specifically, Western world, we are too busy because we constantly running, so we kind of like running away from the most important message
Mm.
that is sent by our body to how to heal ourselves or how to repair things that needs to be repaired, because the body is signalizing things very, very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But we are, there is so much external noise around that we don't hear outside. We don't, you need to quiet down and you need to slow down to hear the whisper of the body already suggesting something, that something is happening. If you don't slow down, if you don't sit in silence and stillness, more than likely you're not going to hear the whispers, but then you're going to hear the scream when it's a little bit too late. So that's why meditation and all these ancient mindfulness practices are very helpful. I'm not
Fascinating.
saying that are essential, because there's other practices, but there must be something about it, that
Mm.
the nature, the spaciousness, the quietness, the only sound of the natural sound that we are being created through that sounds as well, through that light, through that energy, resonates with our body so much that we can only even heal just by going out and sitting in nature. Because we've got all the healers, we've got all the tools, we've got all the medicine within us. We've got breath, which is our first and last tool to arrive to this world and to leave this materialistic world, which is also helping us to regulate the nervous system, digestion, blood pressure. It's the tool to regulate. This is the first tool.
Mm. Oh, I love how you describe that. It's about having a sense of the whispers in the body, because the whispers are telling us something. The body is telling us something, and you mention breath as one way to get back to our foundations of what the body is telling us. You mentioned meditation, Reiki, which for people who don't know what Reiki is, you have a great quote, which is acupuncture without the needles. So all of
Acupuncture without needles, absolutely.
that's fantastic. So yeah, I don't know anything about Reiki, but we can talk about chakras and Reiki in a bit. Maybe there's a link, a naive link at least. But from my perspective, my naive, I don't know. I don't know the links between. I don't know much about chakra and Reiki. That's why I say it's naive. I'm naive to it.
Uh,
Yeah. But before we go into
Briefly,
that, yeah.
yeah,
But
go
before we go
first.
into
Yeah.
that, the essence here to really heal by feeling your body, is relaxation. And relaxation reveals the whispers of your body. And if we want some um, a biological basis for this, we're talking about the fascia, and here's just a complicated diagram just showing that the nervous system from the spine sends out nerve connections to the muscles. And the muscles we saw earlier, well, obviously move your bones, they have muscle fibers. And from this nerve connection, we can have what's called a myofascial connection, but we
Regeneration.
have, well, fascial at least it has the connection with the fascia, which is this organ that goes throughout the rest of your body. Um, so you've touched upon a very important aspect of your practice, which is wanting to um, develop a sense of the body to heal. And you have beautiful gong here behind, and you mentioned nature. Yeah, Yeah, tell me. So, this what does it mean to use sound as a way and music as a way to heal and to actually relax and start hearing the whispers of our body?
Mhm.
What does it mean that? How do
Well,
you do that? Yeah,
Leo, tell me, because you're a musician, so you tell me, how do you understand that? And now fill in with my knowledge about that. Tell me how
sure.
you understand that.
So, music can change your mood. That's how it's thought of music in terms of music
Mhm.
therapy and music cognition. And it can change your moods either. Yes, we can use a very simple psychology measure, which is how positive and negative is the
Mhm.
emotion and how arousing it is, so how exciting or calming. And with these simple two-dimensional understanding of emotions, we can say that music, for instance, dance music or hype music, music that used to go to the gym, music for sports, really can put you in a enhanced state, enhanced hyped state. But you can also use music to meditate, to relax. So depending on the way you use it, uh, it has different functions. And we were just discussing how gongs, for instance, and drums have been used throughout history in a way to put you in the moods that you needed. Today, sound healing is using it, at least one way would be to relax,
Mhm.
but it has been used in history to go to war, to be prepped up. So it just depends on how you use it. One
Yeah,
very clear
yeah.
one clear distinction is
Mhm.
rhythm. Fast
Mhm.
rhythms, fast tempo
Yeah.
is gonna put you in a more excited
Mhm.
state, maybe to go to war, to
Mhm.
go to the gym, whatever. Whereas in a relaxed state,
Also,
mhm,
trance,
trance state, yes.
trance state, right?
Mm,
Because it stimulates a certain wave brains, right?
mhm.
So depending
Like
on
higher
which sound,
frequencies.
like how deep you go and which it penetrates your brain waves. So it's gonna stimulate or it's gonna relax, it's gonna rejuvenate, but it
Mhm,
works on many, many levels. So this is kind of what it is. It's depending on the sound and vibration, because this is the vibration that goes through you. Sound is one thing, but the vibration that goes through the body and gets into the cell on the cellular level, it's kind of adjust your how your mind's starting to operate, right? So when you go to gamma, you go into this very, you know, floaty state of mind, but also very trance state of
mhm,
mind. This is what the hypnotherapists are using, right? With this voice and the way they speak and what they say, how they say it, they
mhm,
kind of put you into the certain state so you can access the parts of brain and memories which are normally not accessible for us, right? We only get the access to them when we get really relaxed. So this is what the sound is doing with us, to us, or with us in terms of like how it influences our body response and brain response, and where does it take you on the journey.
mhm,
So with the drum, you can move into the very, you know, as you say, it's going to wake you up, it's going to it wants you to move, it gives you this very creative energy, like a Leo energy, you know, Leo energy. And then you've got a wild woman energy, and then you've got a different sound which is going to penetrate your brain in a different way, that you're going to feel like you're connecting to the stars, that you're melting into the ground, that you're just basically dissolving. And this is a very blissful state of mind, as we're saying,
mm,
where the body just rests and digests. So it doesn't, it goes out from this very, you know, fight flight mode, or the very disconnected, like dorsal vagal mode, and it goes into this parasympathetic mode where you don't have to do anything because you feel safe, you feel supported. And this is
Right.
when the healing happens. This is exactly when the healing happens.
When you're in a safe environment. But you here mentioned two states, if I understand correctly. The sort of more hyper trance state and a more relaxed state, right?
Yes, yes,
Fantastic.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Trance is also relaxing. And this is
Hmm.
what also when the healing happens, because you're switching off the thinking mind and you're going more into this very like a default not doing, not knowing zone, where
Okay.
you also in that zone, in the trance zone, you also processing the difficult emotions, or you opening the doorways for things that has been suppressed because of the fear. So when the fascia ties your muscles because you've got the fight flights, or you pretending you're dead because there is a threat, this is the response of the primordial human, right? That we don't have other option. We have to either pretend we are dead or we run, right? So this is our nervous system did not develop yet to the stage where you can actually respond correctly to everything what is happening around us. It's still quite basic. So parasympathetic system, nervous system, it has only developed recently. I mean 2000, 200 million years ago, but
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
still very young comparing to the rest of the nervous
Like the
systems that
brain
is much
stem, for instance, which is
diverse.
reptilian.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So we are in many situations when there is a threat, we still using reptilian brain. So
Hmm.
when we are in the tetra or when we are in the gamma zone, for example, we stop using that brain because the mind starting to understand that there is no threat, and we processing these difficult emotions by releasing them as well. So it's very complex stuff that is happening with these very simple tools that we use. And
Yes.
we just, if everyone started understand how the vibration and listening to the particular type of music uh, stimulates us in a positive way, to release the emotions, to release the grief. I think I had that conversation with you like a few days ago when we spoke. I was telling you that classical music for me, for example, when I was going through the breakup period, it was very heavy for me.
Hmm.
I could not listen to any music but classical music, also certain type of classical music. This is because for some reason, string instruments and the voice and all the symphony orchestra penetrates my body in a specific way to allow me to release sadness and grief in a very specific way. So it goes very deep. And I'm listening to my body. My body tells me, okay, today we're listening to this because I want to go deep and I
Mm.
want to release, right? So I'm
Interesting.
not going to be pushing it away. I'm not going to suppress that and go and listen to, I don't know, Depeche Mode, or something that, is a totally different sound. So it makes sense. Like
Mm.
if we start listening to what gives us certain type of sensation in the body, what
Hmm.
helps us to release music wise, release that emotional state, what gives you this sentimental, very deep, sensational within the body, emotional, physical, right? Sometimes shiver. I got shivers when I go to listen to Barbican and listen to the orchestra. I'm like, you
Yeah.
know, it's like it's a bliss, but it's also a release. That's what we need.
It's fascinating. Yes, there's a complex effect with a simple tool, or relatively simple. If we talk about sound healing, although there's already some nuances if we talk about frequencies and solfeggio chakras. I want to talk about that a bit later on. And here you just mentioned choosing the right music for hitting the right how can you say this? It's the right depth, uh, but that's still too vague. I feel to mention what it's but it's fascinating all the levels, the complexity levels, and actually I want to go to this article that I remember reading a long time ago, which they compared um, a group of people who were under psychedelics, psilocybin, and to shamanic practitioners, so who are
Yeah.
basing their healing practice with ancient techniques without the usage of psychedelics. So they were comparing someone who has um, a practitioner who does not take any psychedelics and someone who's not trained and takes psychedelics, and they were listening to drumming music,
Yeah.
and yeah, they were having complex imagery and visual alterations that were coming,
Mhm.
and there were overlapping consciousness experiences between someone
Mhm.
who took psychedelics and a practitioner who did not take any psychedelics. And let's have a look at the brain activity really quickly. That you have these beautiful images that they've come up with, these scientists. So here's the protocol that we're comparing, listening to music, listening to drumming, and there were different
Amazing.
groups that so that could
Mhm.
compare scientifically to this. And here, I believe this is the shamanic EEG, which shows a very broad spectrum of activity in the beta brain region, brain wave region, but also higher end in gamma and lower end in theta, which is a very relaxing state. I'm just going to bring up again the brain waves.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Very
Uh,
interesting because obviously I also, I do have experience of, the healing with plant medicine,
mhm.
with ayahuasca and mushrooms.
All right.
And so that's, I also know how this kind of influenced my healing and how quickly I managed to arrive to the certain states of mind, or how I could bypass my conscious mind, because this is the major problem for us, right? As a human,
Okay.
is to bypass the conscious mind to allow for healing to happen. Um, so because we're blocking majority of this stuff, right? We're blocking it. So with the psychedelics or with the plant medicine, we just speeding up the whole process of opening the mind, or the mind, helping the mind to bypass or to release, to for us to get into this, let's say the source of struggle, the pain, and the tension in the tissue that needs to be released.
Hmm. That's so it comes down to this there's this theory of how the brain is under psychedelics, which is what you're trying to say is that we have a way that our brain is or as consciousness is stopping us, is putting barriers towards
Blocking,
certain
yeah.
blocking
Yeah.
us. And what psychedelics and healing powers and what this study shows is that shamanic practices and maybe,
Absolutely.
well, this is where sound healing and Reiki can come in. They
Mhm.
actually relax the rigidity of our consciousness. And here it's explained here that we have certain landscapes that our brain is used to um, doing, and so are in a ways the barriers that are useful. We have ways of perceiving, and the way that we perceive is our lens, and our lens is habitual in a way. So there's obviously a spectrum to how rigid the habitual thought patterns and behaviors are, and to less rigid. There's a personality factor, but this rigidity allows us to function, right? Because under these healing states, we are in a complete relaxed state, maybe similar to a sleep state, but we can't be always sleeping, right? We can't. We are the a theory for why sleeping is important is because we have to heal, but also there's a moment of darkness that we have to adapt to through a sleeping behavior, and in light we can actually act and be, you know, behave in a different way. So just to finish up on this, so the brain and the psychedelics, so maybe through healing, I believe so too, through other healing practices like at least music and sound healing, that is in a relaxed state, would relax our brain
Breath and
activity.
meditation, you know, that's
Breath
it's
and
still,
meditation.
people
Yeah.
still undermine the power of the breath and meditation, how you can put yourself, you know, now we've got the breath work techniques that
Hmm.
can put you into the states
Hmm.
of, like when you're under influence of some sort of medication, because we with the breath we can access these parts which are normally not accessible, but still some of us, and the majority of us, is so blocked that we are not allowing ourselves to go there. We block it before we get there, because obviously at some point it was too dangerous, it wasn't safe, so the mind is going to be blocking you from going there. But with the help of these techniques, is it psychedelics, mushroom or plant medicine or sounds or breath, we can actually get into those places.
That's fantastic. And yeah, all of these techniques have obviously nuances because of the way we do it. And I want to talk about Reiki and sound healing with you in a bit. Just want to hammer in because psychedelics is a very powerful thing, and this paper says it in the title. With great power comes great vulnerability, because psychedelics put you in a completely open state. That's the idea. Well, depending on the dosage, I suppose. But here, just a last point, that the differences between practices. So a shamanic practice is someone who has trained, whereas the psychedelic has lower gamma activity in this case of this study. This was a big difference. But so just to hone in the nuance in psychedelics. I would like to hear more about chakras and frequencies. You mentioned that there are different frequencies that are associated with different chakras. Now, I don't understand much about chakras apart from the fact that it's different parts of the body that are sort of these energy centers or gravity centers. And usually I always think of this image, but maybe it's not the best image to think about it. Well, could you elaborate on this association between
Sure.
frequencies and,
So
yeah, chakras?
every to make it simple, but I think a majority of the people more or less know that the colors sort of represents the frequency as well
Okay.
as the energy that is related to the certain part of the body. This is done in this way just to make it easier. They are not kind of fully aligned this way, and they spread across the body as well. This is major chakras. There is also minor chakras across the body, but basically this is the energetic points which are influencing different parts, different organs within the body. And from the solar plexus points, which is basically speaks about the relationship with yourself and the relationship with others, we're starting to move to more of the etheric parts. So from the solar plexus, we're getting connected to the energy of the universe, whereas from the solar plexus down, we are more connecting to the more grounded stuff in our lives, which is the willpower, the money, the survival, the roots that we grew up in, the values. So it's much more of the material, realistic stuff. This is also creation, a sacral chakra for specifically for women, obviously, it's a powerhouse, is the source of creation. So very important energetic points from heart down, and then a very etheric, more over the etheric energy coming from the heart up. And sometimes we call it, when all these chakras are aligned and balanced, we are we are open to the kundalini, we are activated with the kundalini energy, which goes from the root chakra to the top chakra, connects us with the entire world. This is when we feel balanced. This is when we feel like there is a love and calmness and abundance in our life, and everything is well. When the chakras are off balance, meaning something is affecting our one of the energetic points, this obviously affects the different parts of our body and the functionality of it. So if you feel like, let's say you're heartbroken, that's what we call it in English and many other languages, someone broke your heart. That literally what that means is your heart is broken at the moment. So it's kind of its functionality is being distracted. It doesn't work properly. There is a crack, there is a pain, and there is the emotions related to this chakra. So if we speak about Reiki, what Reiki does, Reiki balances the energies within the body. And as we call it, Reiki without needles, which means we don't use anything except our hands and breath to stimulate the energy of the other person. So I'm using my energy, and that takes practice. In this place, I would like to say also that doing a weekend Reiki course is not a good thing. It's not a proper practitioner. If you go to a person who's gonna flash the certificate that they did over the weekend, this is not how that works. This is the ancient technique that needs to be practiced. It's like shamans. Shamans don't get born and become shamans in a few days or over the space of a few weeks. It's a practice. It's the meditative state that the practitioner needs to put themselves in. They need to drop into their bodies in order to connect with someone else's body in an energetic way to help them to deal with the stagnated energy within the body. And doesn't matter what it is. It could be a healing a broken bone, and it could be healing a broken heart.
Fantastic.
Is that a good explanation?
Yeah, very interesting. Do you mind going into how
I like this picture.
the
The light
yeah
doesn't come up of my palm when I'm doing it, but I guess this is something that describes what's actually happening internally within the human body, because you bring the energy starts to concentrate in the certain parts. And with Reiki practice, we use mantras as well. Mantra is called, it's
it's
kind
a
of
word
like
you say
why
you
it's
speak
called
it.
white magic for reason. Repeating a mantras, which is the ancient language Sanskrit. If you repeat a mantra, that also puts you in a certain state of trance when you're calling of the energies that used to heal people for centuries. So this is what happens with when we sitting in the meditation and repeating mantras. This is self healing when we meditate, but this is also what lots of Reiki practitioners do when we are actually treating someone. We use mantras, we use specific symbols to call on the specific energy, and we use breath as well. We use sound. Some of us use the tuning forks to amplify the experience with the vibration. So it's quite deep, and it's quite serious, and people don't treat it seriously, but it's quite serious to me because I've seen the effects of it on people. I've seen the healing, and I've seen how people behave before and later. But we also spoke about, we know about the placebo sort of effect, and this has been tested for many times. If you don't believe in something, that you're not going to receive that healing, because you have to be open for it as well.
Right. You have to be curious about it a bit in order to receive the information. Otherwise, you're just projecting.
I can't see you, Leo. I
Oh,
mean,
you
if
can't see.
you've got
Okay.
your screen is frozen.
I'm
I mean,
coming
I
back just in
see
case.
what you're
I see you.
projecting, but
Okay.
I can't
Am I back?
see. Yes.
Cool. I'd love to hear what you. Maybe you can have some examples with your instruments of, if it's possible, to have any frequencies associated with different chakras and explain what it means. Like, is this correct? Is this? I just Googled
That's
randomly.
correct. Yeah.
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 So you would have a certain tuning fork, for instance, for the root chakra,
Yeah.
another one for the sacral, all the way to the crown chakra. Is that
Yeah.
something?
Yeah. So these specific ones are, as the description says, there are the ancient healing tones. So
Mhm,
they resonate with the different aspects and the different parts of the body.
mhm.
So that's why this is assigned to the different
Chakras.
chakras within the body. So that's very that's very important to understand that.
And where
As
does
we
this
know, like,
where does
yeah,
these frequencies come from actually? Is it like Sanskrit
yes,
text?
yes.
Do you know any
It's
names by any chance that people could, or is it any
uh,
of the titles? Sorry.
what you just shown.
Yeah.
If people start to look for the solfeggio tones or frequencies, this will explain exactly where this tones comes from. And so all the orchestras used to be adjusted. They are, when the orchestra is tuning in before they start
Yes.
playing,
Mm.
it used to be done according to the ancient frequencies, tones. It has
Okay.
changed. It
Hmm.
actually has changed through the centuries.
There's
So
a
many people say we are actually not in tone what is played in the symphonic and the
yeah.
orchestras. And this is the original one, which we're supposed to tune in into this vibrations, into these tones, because these are healing tones for our body, original healing tones.
Hmm. Okay, so yeah, 520 hertz. I'm sure you can Google on YouTube different of these,
Yes.
but
Look,
yeah,
528.
they're just yeah. Go on, please. This is 528.
This is 528. So solar plexus.
So you would start with this because it's the central one.
I won't start with this.
No.
I will start with something which is, so normally when I treat people with tuning forks, because I've got this tuning forks which are these frequencies, I will see where the stagnated energy is within the body. So I don't have to use the other tuning forks. And
Mhm.
with the Reiki, I'm actually balancing energy in the body, in the whole body, with few movements of my hand.
Okay.
It's different. So with tuning forks, I will choose the fork that I feel like this is the fork that needs to be used. And someone comes to me with a very specific with the injury or something, there is
Mhm.
also tuning fork for that, which is 417
Mm.
or 147. It's not here. There is the range
Mhm.
is a little bit bigger for solfeggio tones. This one is
Okay.
specifically for chakras, but
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You've got frequencies which are very specific to specific we see 174. It's for the specific things, the physical pain or emotional pain, or releasing a grief and guilt, or connecting uh, with the wholeness, with the whole you. So there's connecting with your heart. Yeah, so
Interesting.
difference. I don't want to go through the entire list of
Yeah.
things, because they are quite specific for
Right.
each chakra, but or for
Fantastic.
each state. I would say it's to do with the physical, emotional, or a
Mm.
mental state. So
Mm. This is great. Um, I love to hear I mean, you already played before, so but I don't know what would be some practical tips you can give to listeners to use gongs and use
Mm.
sounds like this to yeah to improve their feeling of their body.
Well, now there is a, there is, because of the technology, we've got plenty of sources to go to and listen for free. You can go and listen for free on the YouTube, on the, what's this called? There is plenty of apps where you can actually get that, 15 or 10 minutes of sound healing. But to me, it's because I'm quite sensitive. Also, I've got ADHD, so my sensory, it's kind of like I'm quite sensitive
Mhm,
to certain type of sounds, and sometimes listening through the devices doesn't give me the same experience.
mhm.
um,
Right, the
and I
acoustic is
also
very
need,
powerful.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
also need to know what instruments are being used. Some people use the earplugs because some of the frequencies are just too loud. They
mhm,
rather irritate them than they relaxing them. But also irritation comes for a reason when we're receiving sound healing. It's like something is triggering you, which means you need to look into this.
mm,
But
interesting, interesting. S-
so I
So,
go by, I go to sound healing physically. I'll go because obviously when you're playing it, it's different when you're receiving it. I cannot switch off when I'm playing, right?
cannot switch off when you're playing, of
Yeah,
course.
I can't fully switch. I'm receiving the healing, obviously it penetrates my body, but it's not the same when you actually lie down and try to quiet your mind. That's different.
Hmm.
Um,
I find that very interesting, the fact that if you are listening to different sounds and it's triggering you, that's a sign that you can deepen into that trigger. That's something that you should look into. And then there's the mismatch between playing the sound and listening to the sound. But could you finish with a gong hit?
sure.
I love that.
What do you want me to do?
Or
Just a little bit of this?
yes. Oh, thank you so much. I think your mic has cut it off, but we got a bit of it as well. Fantastic. Wow, there's so much stuff that we went through, and
Yeah, yeah. I
you
hope
know,
it
there's
was useful. It's
oh no,
hour and
it's
a half, so you have to do
yes.
some cuts there.
Wow, it's and I just want to orient people to your website again. There's a your website here. This is you in nature,
It's
and
me in nature.
here's
That's me and
yes,
Gabor.
you and Gabor, and you on Instagram. So
Thank
it's been
you.
a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No,
That
there
was
was
pleasure to be here.
so much we went through because it's such a complex and ongoing research.
I hope it was helpful. If anyone's got any questions, you know how to find you, how to find me through you, you through me. So
Yes, fantastic.
thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Gosia. Thank you for watching this conversation with Gosia. Please make sure to subscribe and like this video and subscribe to be up to date with upcoming conversations about music, art, philosophy, and science. Now, if you would like to see a sound healing demo that Gosia did for me during this conversation, make sure to watch this video. This video is also in the link in the description below, and go and watch that to experience what sound healing is, how the gong sounds, or different bells that Gosia uses in her practice. I was also invited by Gosia to have a Reiki session with her. I found it interesting. My insights about how my body is vibrating were were interesting to hear how she thought my energy was um, dispersed in my body. If you want to hear my insight, I am a very intellectual person, so I am taking that into my life and applying it differently. So she said that I had a lot of energy going up here. I won't tell you everything because I think it's kind of personal, but that was insightful. I also did a breathwork and sound healing session with Gosia and her colleagues. Um, it was very interesting. There was also ceremonial cacao, which is a very tasty hot chocolate. I love 100% chocolate, so this was dream for me. And we were blindfolded, just doing breathing works and hearing as well. Subsequently, during the sound healing session, we were hearing all these sounds from gongs, from drums, from sort of percussion going throughout the room, moving around. The practitioner was moving around Gosia, and it was really nice to have a sense of what this is. Go and check out the video about sound healing. Thank you very much for watching. Go and check out that sound healing video. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you very much.